on you. What kind of business that you want to actually venture into. That one you are free to choose. But when you are preparing for that particular business proposal, you need to actually assess your environment. So this is where you need to apply the Potter's model that you are using ataupun you're talking about your value chain analysis. So gunakan whatever techniques or tools or models that you already learned earlier on for you to actually justify why you need to why you are venturing into that business. And then you are supposed to be also doing some forecasting in terms of how much revenue that you're going to get from that particular business. All right. And what will be your future profit? What kind of expenditure that you are going to incur and the future profit, and whether you are going to have like a sole proprietorship or whether you are going to have a partnership, it's all depending on you. So basically, that's what it is supposed to be. So if you have any question at the moment, you may ask, just to, clarify things for you to actually kickstart your activities. Any question?
No, madam.
You faham ke tak ni?
Nanti madam akan bagi guideline kan?
Saya akan bagi guideline. Tapi sekarang I nak you all fikir, you divide yourself in group, at least you have something in mind already.
Berapa minit seorang madam?
For you to present dalam 15 minutes.
15 minutes each group.
Each group. Sebab you are supposed to be preparing a report satu. Alright, you kena ada report satu. You kena ada presentation satu. Full report kena submit together with your presentation as well.
Madam, kalau ikut lesson plan that week ada quiz kan sepatutnya? So, quiz would be?
Okay, that week kan you ada two classes, right? So you would I'm okay if you are not able to present that week pun I okay saja. Sampai that we are flexible in that sense. I would prefer the quiz to be slightly later because at least you read for your exam. Sambil you baca untuk quiz tu, you akan buat your revision. That's why I'm suggesting for that particular presentation first. It's all up to you. Memang patutnya akan ada week 2 untuk quiz. And my quiz is not going to be the same like other people's punya type of quiz that you are going near. I'm going to give you like something to watch ke, something to read, then only you will have questions that I'm going to post based on that particular materials that you read ataupun materials that you watch. It's not like a typical quiz yang biasa orang selalu a traditional approach, no. Any question?
No question madam. Tapi nanti tarikh quiz tu kita bincang kemudian lah kan?
Kita bincang kemudian quiz tu. I nak you all, sebab apa you all ni cuti seminggu. You all buat apa cuti seminggu? Ke you all nak present masa lain? You nak prepare masa lain? Ini tengah bargaining It's all up to you ni. I tak nak push. Alright, I'm giving that flexibility to you.
Rasanya boleh je, madam.
What about the rest? You all decide.
Boleh je, madam.
Okay. Boleh yang mana? Boleh quiz ke boleh presentation? Presentation dulu. Kalau you all tak sempat nak sedia full report, report hantar kemudian pun tak apa. The most important thing is you prepare for your presentation. You all pergi mana? Cuti?
Tak pergi mana.
Boleh lah kan? Duduk rumah. Oh, sama-sama lah kita duduk rumah. Sama-sama lah boleh kita buat. Tak?
Betul.
Okay. So basically this is a bonus cuti for all of you, for you to finish up whatever that's pending. Right? So this is a guideline. I rasa dia sama je macam apa? Macam dulu. I will give this to you after this. Mana? Okay. Okay, whatever it is, I will share that with you after this. Alright, kita start dulu.
Madam,
Yeah,
presentation live kan? Ke nak video?
prepare for both. Just in case your line, if it's not good. Live first, alright? What's happening? I lost my cursor. Sekejap. Mana pula dah? Ya Allah, ya Tuhanku. Okay. Supposed to be recording. Dia hilang kejap.
Madam bagi pilihan ke nak live atau video ni?
Apa dia? Bukan pilihan. Bukan pilihan. Live first.
Okay, kalau line okay, live je lah kan?
Live je lah.
Okay je rasanya.
Alright. Apa pasal I cannot present? Kenapa dia suruh switch to desktop app ah? I'm supposed to be sharing. Dia kata switch to desktop app. Allow. Cik, you jangan ke mana I'm switching ni. Okay. Okay. Right. Can you see the screen?
Yes, madam.
Alright. Okay. Macam-macam technical punya ni. Alright. Okay. What we are going to cover today will be on the strategic control and corporate governance. Okay. Basically, from looking at this particular title, strategic control and corporate governance, what do you have in mind? What do you think that this particular chapter is all about? What do you think?
Board of Directors?
Yeah, we are talking about board of directors. Yes. What else that you can think of? What else can you think of? Come on, think of something. Kita dah penat present. Semua dah keluar dah. So it's like after sitting for your exam. What do you understand by strategic control? What do you mean by control? In a layman terms, okay, what do you understand from the word control?
Power.
Power. What else that you can talk about here?
Guide.
Pardon? A guide. What else?
Manage.
Manage. You're talking about power. You're talking about guide. You're talking about manage. What else?
Monitoring.
You're talking about monitoring. What else?
Protect.
Apa dia?
Protect.
Talking about protect. Okay, what else? Tadi somebody was talking about board of directors, right? Okay. Basically, these are some of the pieces of words that you are giving, okay, from your understanding. And along the line, as we go into this particular chapter, see whether these particular words appear, right, in which context that it appears. And you will find that these particular words that you are sharing just now will appear in patches. And however, when you put things together, you will find how meaningful it is, okay, the words that you have given just now. Because why? Because it is so crucial that whenever you have any activities okay, regardless whether those particular activities or operations, okay, basically, or your strategy that you have formulated, okay, if we are talking about all those, no matter how important those are, basically for you to know whether it's successful or not, okay, you need to have some element of control and corporate governance, okay, to ensure that whatever that you are planning to pursue with goes accordingly based on what you have already planned. So in the context of what you are going to learn about effective strategic control system, okay, in the context of implementation, because when you are executing something, you need to have some control mechanism, all right? Even if you are driving, basically, you need to have some control mechanism. What will be the control mechanism as you drive? Why do you think that you need to have that control mechanism? Imagine yourself driving, imagine yourself cycling, or imagine yourself on a motorbike. All right? Do you have any element of control when you do those particular activities? What do you think? Do you have element of control when you do those activities? It's just an ordinary activities. It's just our, I would say, what we do almost every day. It's our routine. You go down the stairs, you need some control elements there. You climb up the stairs, you also need some control mechanism as well. Even if you eat, you need to have a control mechanism as well. What's the purpose of that particular control mechanism? It can be traditional, it can be contemporary. Try to relate to your daily activities.
To minimize error.
To minimize error, basically you're talking about to minimize error, to minimize mistake, right? Why do you think that you need to minimize error or you need to minimize mistake?
To make sure that the activity went smoothly.
You want to ensure that the activity goes on smoothly, all right?
Yes.
So basically that's the reason why you need to have some control mechanism. So when we are talking about organizations which are bigger in the context, all right, when you say organization, we are talking about private or can be public or can be non-profit organization as well. It can be any kind of organization, all right? So you will definitely ensure that you have an effective control mechanism so that whatever that you plan to pursue with or whatever that you want to execute, okay, will run smoothly. So you need that particular some control mechanism. Like when you drive, definitely, okay, when there are traffic jam along the line, okay, in front of you, which you were not aware of, at least you have a brake, which is your control mechanism so that you can slow down when you reach to the location where there's traffic, okay? When there are traffic lights as well. So if the traffic light is red, definitely you must actually put on your brake slowly, okay, press on your brake slowly so that you can stop when the traffic light turns red. So this is some sort of a control mechanism that you can see physically. In the context of managing an organization, you need to have this kind of control mechanism as well. All right. So you want to make sure that whatever that you have planned for, whatever that you have execute, it runs smoothly. When I say it runs smoothly, we are talking about you are executing it based on the original plan that you had earlier on. So you want to ensure that everything goes on to your plan. Okay, when there are emergencies that you have to put a stop to it, all right? You have to actually put a brake to it. So why you need to do that? Because you want to see whether whatever that you are pursuing with, is it still correct? Okay, are you still on track? All right, is that the actual direction that you want to go for? So that's the reason why you need to have these particular elements of strategic control when it comes to strategic implementation. And in order for you to actually go for this, right? And basically, okay, when we talk about driving, when we are talking about driving a car, basically, there's always rules and regulations that you have to follow as well. All right. You must make sure that you did not go against the traffic. All right. There's rules and regulation on the direction of that particular route. And we are also talking about the speed limits that you have. If you go against that particular speed limit, what do you get? You get a ticket where you have to pay for that particular summon. All right. So basically all these are some elements of control mechanism, and which is called as governance. All right. So in an organization, basically similar things is also taking place. There are certain rules and regulations which are formal that you have to follow. There are also some sort like a regulation, which is basically some informal kind of, do's and don'ts that you will have. Why do you need all this? To make sure that you are on track. And if you think that whatever that happens doesn't put you on track, you have to do something about it. Okay, so there are many elements that can actually promote a faster journey towards your direction, and there are always something that hinders it from moving towards that particular direction that you want. All right, so basically it involves human behavior. That's why you see here there's a behavioral control coming in. When it comes to the car that you are driving, basically it's easy to control the car, all right, rather than to control the person who's driving it. Okay, because you don't know what is in his or her mind. And because of that particular elements as well, that's where this particular control role of corporate governance comes into the picture. Okay, so basically this is what I meant by strategic control just now. You want to ensure that you can actually monitor, okay, the execution of the strategy that you have already planned for. Why? Because you want to ensure that it goes to the right direction. These are some of the strategic control mechanism. Okay, strategic control is about what? Like what you said, some of you have already mentioned the word about monitoring just now. All right. How is it related to manage? Some of you mentioned about the word guide. Okay. Some of you said power. All right. Some of you said manage, protect, some did mention about board of directors. So here, yes, one of you did mention about monitoring just now performance. So basically, how do you do that? What kind of performance that you are looking at? When you execute a strategy, there's always some activities that you are doing. All right. So you want to make sure that that particular activities that you are doing brings you towards the strategic direction that you want, where you have already spelled out what are your strategic goals. So for you to move towards that direction that you want, if you achieve that strategic goals, it means that you are moving or heading to that particular right direction. And if along the way that you find that the activities that you are executing is not bringing you towards that particular goal, then you need to do something about it. Okay, that's why we are talking about you need to manage it. Okay, you need to go back to find your guide. Okay, for you to actually ensure that you can bring back whatever activities towards the direction that you want just now. Okay, so basically in the context of strategic control, there are three things that you have to look at. Okay, there are three mechanisms. If you're putting it formally in this context, it's going to be informational control system. You have behavioral control system. You also have corporate governance. So these are the three elements that are very crucial, okay, for you to actually control your execution of your strategy. Kalau traditional approach, all right, they could step. Basically, you formulate your strategy first, then you execute your strategy, and then after you have executed, then you try looking into whether your strategies works or not. All right. So this is this one. This is one. And when you talk about this one, you're talking about performance is measured against predetermined goals. So when you do your strategic control, it is always that you refer back to your strategic goals. Capai ke tak capai, right? So that's the reason why you have this particular strategic control in the picture, and that's the reason why here it says performance is measured against your predetermined goals, all right? But in the context of a modern business nowadays, okay, don't be surprised if your goalpost moves, all right? Why? Because when you talk about predetermined goals, okay, when you decided earlier on, when you plan, okay, next year I'm going to achieve this and this. But as you move on into your 2022, you find that your goals are no longer significant. You need to find your new goals. Okay, that means your goals now, your goalpost changes. Okay, this is what we meant by dynamic situations. And when your goalpost changes, your strategy that you have thought earlier on that would actually help you to achieve the goals that you have already determined earlier will no longer be appropriate or suitable anymore for you to pursue with that new goal. So you need to cast aside whatever strategy that you have already planned for, and you need to come up with new strategy. This is what we meant by emergence. All right. And the situation is the situation of a dynamic situation. And in order for you to address that situation, you need to be agile. You need to adapt to that particular situation fast and able to think fast and able to move on fast. All right. So basically, when you talk about traditional approach, okay, this you have what people call as single loop learning. And in the situation that we had earlier on, before the pandemic, life was rather a little bit simpler than now, and compared to before, we are much more stable, though not as stable as a couple of years back, like 10 or 20 years back, but eventually they are more stable, all right? And you are able to actually know what you're going to do. You know what's your objective. It doesn't change much, all right? So basically, only after you have done your activities to achieve the goals, then you are going to actually look back and see what you have already learned from that particular journey to achieve the goal. What was your mistake that you have made, which you think that you wouldn't want to pursue with it anymore? And what are the good things that you think, okay, you should retain and use it for the future? It was kind of simple as compared to now. But when we talk about contemporary approach model, which applies in our situation now, okay, this is how it looks. It's not a one-way street. It's not a one-way direction. Bukan one direction. You have multiple directions, basically. All right? So instead of having, let me try this, annotate. Lama tak pakai benda ni. Okay, instead of having it one way like this, macam yang tadi tu. Alright. And then after that, you have your strategies. Lepas tu, you akan ada strategic control, right? Now, you have what? It goes back and forth. You need to continuously and consistently monitor them. Right? Because if you formulate strategy and you execute it, and if it doesn't work, you have to formulate new one. It goes back. And as you implement it, you need to control it. And if you think there are things that you need to rectify and redo it, it goes back again. All right? And as and when you think that when you monitor there are things that doesn't work, then you need to go back and formulate them. Okay? Then you see whether it can be controlled or not. And the relationship between them is very much interactive. And the type of mechanism that you are going to look at will be these particular two elements: informational control and behavioral control. You are not just going to monitor your resources in terms of information or any kind of other resources, okay, that you have, but we are also talking about monitoring the human aspect. All right. So when we talk about monitoring the human aspect, you'll face a lot of challenges because managing people is not as easy as managing the system. All right. So here, when you talk about informational control, we are talking more on managing the system. All right. When it comes to behavioral control, that's where we are talking about managing the human factor. Okay. managing people. Dulu orang selalu panggil managing system and managing people. Alright? So these are the two things that you need to focus when it comes to this particular contemporary approach model. Ada apa-apa soalan? Any
No
question?
question.
My question to you. Yang mana mudah? Jaga your resources dari segi buku you, pensel you, your alat-alat for your studying ke ataupun friends? Yang mana lagi mudah?
Alat-alat.
Alat-alat you. Bandingkan managing your friends, right?
Betul, madam.
Tapi
Yeah.
kecil hati lah. Macam-macam kan? Kadang-kadang you thought that you could finish your group work on time, but because of certain situation, okay, you all cannot do it on time. So, kadang-kadang you feel like, baik buat seorang lagi senang lah daripada buat in group. So, this is what we meant. Alright? How important it is when you are already outside there working. When talking about controlling, okay, you are not just controlling whatever information that you have, okay, in terms of the operation, but you are also going to deal with people. All right? So, when you are opening up your business nanti, all right, you are going to propose a business that you are planning to venture into. So definitely you will have group members and definitely you will have some workers basically. So these are the two things when it comes to strategic control that you actually need to consider as well. And definitely in coming up with strategies, you need to do the activities before coming up with that particular strategies, which are assessing or evaluating your internal and external environment, basically looking at your SWOT analysis, and basically from there you will be able to formulate your strategies. But don't forget about, okay, as you move on in executing your activities, okay, you need to have some element of control as well. And these are the two things which is very crucial in the current context, which is informational control and behavioral control. So what is it all about? So basically, when we talk about that, all right, informational control is about doing the right things. Rasanya pernah dengar tak benda ni sebelum ni? Pernah kan? Information control is about doing the right things. Behavioral control is about doing things right. Apa beza dua ni?
Beza dia, madam.
Hmm?
Beza dia kalau information ni saya rasa lah, doing the right things ni macam ikut regulation atau law.
Okay.
Doing the things right, kalau nak buat sesuatu, buat dengan cara betul.
Dengan
Macam
buat dengan
Macam
Alright?
kena tahu kena ada knowledge lah nak buat sesuatu tu.
Betul. And then satu lagi, not just about knowledge. Remember the one that you have learned dalam your before this, apa dia? Ni apa ni? Okay, thanks. They're talking about apa tu?
Effective
Apa yang
and efficient.
Pardon?
Effective. Doing the right things, efficient. Doing things right, effective.
Yep. So basically, you must have both elements. All right. So sometimes doing these two only may not actually help you to be effective and efficient because of certain reason. Remember, right? Not everyone is perfect, and definitely we are talking about challenges that you faced, okay, in managing these particular people. So that's the reason why you have the elements of corporate governance coming in later. All right. So when we talk about a contemporary control system using information control, it will only be effective when what does it mean by constantly changing information? That's why I say you have to be agile just now. You have to know what's the in thing now, what's current. And if you are able to bring that into the picture and help you, okay, in executing your strategy, because you know what is actually important. Okay, that's why they have the word strategic importance there. Information that have got strategic importance, which you need to actually focus on, and that's the only then it can be effective. Remember, you will have lots and lots of information. So you need to know which particular information is actually relevant to you. And when I say relevant to you, relevant in the situation that you are in where you have to make decision then. Okay. Would it have any impact on your strategic goals? If it does have impact on your strategic goals, that's where it is of strategic importance. Does it have any impact on your profitability? If yes, then it is of strategic importance. That means you know your focus, all right? Because there are lots of information. Information is very crucial, but you must know what are the relevant information and where the source comes from. Is it reliable? So these are the kind of things that you need to actually look at as well. And that's where, okay, when we talk about all this particular information, that's where you can relate it with the quality of good information. Okay. So why do they say here that control system is a catalyst for ongoing debate about underlying data, assumptions, and plans? What do you understand by this? What does it mean? In your own words. Come on, in your own words. Senyap je, you all ni dah kelaparan ke? You all ni baru pukul 11:30. What does it mean by control system is a catalyst for ongoing debate? What did I mention to you just now? What about the environment that we are in now? Is it stable like before? Is it like predictable like we used to have before? It's no longer that way. So whatever information that comes into the picture, all right, need to be looked at carefully, and the kind of control system that you must have in place need to ensure that you are able to continuously protect the information that you have in your organization. And remember, as there are new technology coming in, okay, the kind of control system that you're going to have in place will no longer be effective. So that's the reason why that you will always need to look at this particular control system and need to actually ensure that, okay, it will continuously help protect the information that you have inside your organization. So as and when there are new influence or changes outside there, remember, if it can affect the control system that you have, this is something that you need to actually continuously discuss and debate on. Okay, why? Because we are talking about the kind of data that you are actually looking at and which other people are looking at as well. And if you have that data, others don't, then definitely there bound to be someone who will try to actually break into your system and get those particular data. They can hack your system. All right. So when we talk about hacking, it's not something that when you have one particular control mechanism and it will help protect you forever, okay, from this particular hackers. You will have to continuously looking at what would be the best way to protect your data. All right. Okay. Another one is informational control issues. When we talk about informational control, all right, what would be the possible issues that may arise when it comes to informational control? Tadi kan kita ada diskusi ni? What do you understand by this? What about in your context? Is there any situation that you find that, all right, initially there are some information that are relevant to you, after a while that you find that it's no longer relevant, and you need to actually, you know, look into what are the new information that is relevant, and how reliable those particular information that you actually found, okay, in the context of dealing with whatever issues that you are in. How do you relate that with this particular informational control? Dia orang penat ke? Senyap je. Any question?
Ada idea nak jawab soalan madam.
Tak ada idea nak jawab. Okay. Is there any, okay, basically, are you in any situation whereby you thought that that will be your direction, but after hearing information and after looking into or assessing the situation that's around you, you decided to change into something else?
Yes, madam.
Apa dia?
Contohnya, macam sebelum ni ingat nak kerja audit, bila intern dekat audit firm, rasa macam tak minat tak.
Okay, basically you, from the information that you get earlier on, basically, okay, as to be an accountant, you must have experience working in audit firm, and that's one of those that's very important as a foundation for you to actually be an accountant. And after that, when you enter into the field, all right, you find that that's not what you want. All right. Basically, whatever information that you get from you dealing with the real situation changes your direction. And your aim earlier on, okay, to actually be an accountant, and you must have that audit experience, actually doesn't, doesn't lure you towards that direction anymore. All right. You don't buy with this kind of, people preaching of how important audit is. So what is it that you are thinking now after you went through that experience? You rasa you tak minat audit. So does it change your goals?
Change a little bit.
A little bit. But you still basically wants to be an accountant?
Yes. But
Yes.
not in auditing.
But basically, audit is not what the things that you want to have. So how does it shape your new direction? Where do you think that you want to go? You want to go for?
Maybe go for just being an accountant, not audit.
So basically, to have an experience to become an accountant doesn't mean that you have to be an auditor. All right. There are always other kind of experience that you can actually gain, okay, from your working experience, which help you to become an accountant. So basically, when it comes to controlling the information, you need to actually read a lot and understand, scan and monitor what's around you. That will actually tell you where your direction would be. All right. So basically, even nowadays, even as an auditor, you are no longer doing audit like before. Basically, now we are talking about using a computerized system. Okay, so there are so many things that changes. Why? Because of the technological change that comes from your external environment and from the experience that you have going into audit firm, right? Basically that changes your perception on audit as a platform or as a foundation for you to be an accountant. Dia ada banyak jenis accountant, right? From there you will see that there are so many types of accountant. You want to be a public accountant, okay, or you just want to be an ordinary chartered accountant, or you want to be a management accountant. There are so many ways, right? So basically you are exposed to new things. And that's where, all right, you find that whatever experience that you have acquired, okay, doesn't fit into the context that you are in. And you feel that, okay, even if I'm an accountant, I'm not going to be that kind of accountant or a public accountant. I want to be a different kind of accountant. So there are various other ways for you to become an accountant. So basically, these are the characteristics of what informational control is, all right? So it's about what? It's about ongoing process of organizational learning. So what do you understand by organizational learning? The mechanism for you to do informational control is not stagnant, all right? It is a continuous thing, okay? It is an ongoing kind of process. And from there, you will always learn new things. And that's the reason why it is very important that, okay, when you have information, you need to actually study them well, all right? See how it would relate to the kind of decision that you are making. And if it needs to be debated or discussed or interpreted in another way, then you may want to bring this to the discussion, all right? So why are all these things important? Because you want to ensure that whatever information that drops by to your place, okay, can actually be used to your benefit and not something that actually will hurt you and stop you from moving towards the direction that you want. All right. And if you think that there are some information which are not relevant in the context after you have already done some discussion, things like that, if you feel that it doesn't work for your organization, you can actually put it aside. All right. And when I say putting it aside, it's not about discarding it totally. Yeah, you cannot just discard it totally. Perhaps you can put this particular information under KIV. It may not be relevant now, but it might be relevant in the future. Okay, and that's the reason why you need to continuously monitoring them, okay, testing them or review them. And if you need to actually debate or challenge them, okay, in a discussion, you may do so. All right. That one when we deal with information. All right. Now we are dealing with behavior. Okay, doing things right. Something that can influence you in doing the activities. Okay, whether you are doing the right kind of activities or not, okay, you are supposed to be doing things right. Okay, are you doing it right or not? Okay, basically it depends on certain elements that can be divided into 3 types. Okay, there are 3 types of elements that can actually influence the implementation of doing things right, which that has been spelled out here as culture, sometimes rewards, and there are always some boundaries as well. So you need to understand these particular 3 elements that can have influence on employees. Okay. Apa dia? Boundaries, culture, and rewards. How would culture be an influence to you? Not just individual culture, there are also shared culture, there are also organizational culture as well. Apa dia? Yes, correct. It's the way how we value things and see things, and the way we react to things as well. All right. So this is basically what a culture is all about. And culture can actually be shaped by your upbringing, all right? Can actually be shaped by the religion, all right? It can be manifested based on whatever that you believe in. So this is what culture is. When you are in an organization, all right, basically you are sharing the same kind of culture, okay, which is important. And that's because why an organization need to shape, okay, the kind of values that each and every employees actually has, is because they want you to think the same way when you are in that particular company. If you are not thinking or valuing the same thing, that is very difficult for them to actually make you do things. Okay, you may go some because you may go against them, or sometimes you may be like, not just going against, but you can also be reluctant in helping them to achieve the goals. So when you talk about culture, like what you said, yes, it can be an individual culture, it can also be a group culture or team culture, or it can be a workplace culture. All right. So there are various types of culture, and it is very important that an organization upholds, whoever in that particular organization upholds an ethical culture, a culture that can provide good shared values and beliefs. And that is very important for them to drive the employees to actually work towards the direction that they want. And if they are not sharing the same workplace culture, okay, with the organizational shared values and the beliefs, and it's very difficult for you to actually make them move towards the direction that you want. So that's the reason why when you enter in any organization, you will be molded towards the kind of shared values that they have and the beliefs that they have on how things should be actually done in that particular organization. Like what Afiq was actually experiencing when he entered into this particular audit firm. And what happened is that the kind of perhaps maybe the beliefs or the shared values or activities that they have in that particular firm makes you kind of against certain thing, perhaps, that makes you feel that I don't want audit. Okay. And because of that particular reason, it shapes the way how you look at accountant, and you believe that audit is not the only thing when we talk about an accountant. Do you think you feel that way, Afiq?
Yes.
What makes you say that? Okay, what are the kind of things that you experience, okay, that makes you feel that audit is not what you like?
Maybe when the intern, because of the teammate,
Because of the
worker, teammate,
your
culture.
teammate. Okay, the culture. So basically you're talking about your group, your team.
Yes.
Okay, your audit team.
Yes.
Okay, what makes it that, okay, you feel that you don't quite like the way that they do things?
Because they did not what, dia macam anggap kita ni tak buat kerja.
That means the assumption that they have as if that you're not doing
Yes.
any work. All right. Why do you think that they have that kind of assumption?
Maybe miscommunication because my manager,
Hmm?
she cuti bersalin for like 3 months.
Okay. And
Then there's a lot of miscommunication with her.
so basically, we are talking about what drives this thing to happen is basically the issues arise from informational control just now. All right. And that's why you see that this particular two element needs to be managed together when it comes to strategic control, right? Information control together with behavioral control need to be managed together. The reason being, okay, because of the informational control, okay, give rise to the issue that you're talking about of miscommunication just now. Indirectly, okay, it has an impact on the behavioral control. All right. And the kind of impact that they have on the behavioral control is kind of severe because why? Because it affects how things work in that particular place. Okay, they are making assumptions, and because of that, you can't go with it, and that's the reason why there are conflicts. All right, and when there are conflicts taking place, that will actually slows down the move towards the strategic direction because you need to deal with that particular situation. All right. So basically, when you want to look into this particular strategic control, you can't actually look at it in isolation. Like I mentioned to you earlier on, when anything about strategic management, when anything about dealing with an organization, it cannot be looked at in isolation. All right. So you need to have a look at it in total. So because of this particular two information, okay, the clash of information, it creates conflict. And these are the kind of issues that can arise when there are no proper strategic control taking place. And because of that, because you just came into that particular audit firm and you don't know how things goes around in that particular organization, how would you know that your particular senior would actually, be going for maternity leave? And how would you actually know that, okay, when she goes on maternity leave, that there are someone else or basically that is taking over? Because why? There are miscommunication. There are no communication taking place. So these are the things that need to be addressed. However, the thing that's happening is that because you are new, they have been there for a long time. They already know what are the boundaries. Okay, the implicit boundaries, it means that, okay, they cannot assume that when you don't have your supervisor, you know what to do. They would know what to do because why? They have been there in the organization for a long time. Basically, there is already some boundaries, okay, that has taken place in that organization, which someone new like you wouldn't know, right? For example, dress code. These are some of the things, ethical matters, okay, and the way an organization conducts its business. How would you know that, okay, if your supervisor is on maternity leave, that you automatically know whom should you go for? So basically, okay, these are the kind of things that need to be clarified. All right. So basically, if let's say from the beginning that they know what happened to your supervisor, they would actually have already informed you earlier on and who is going to replace. Okay. If you are new, especially now that, I don't know whether you did it face-to-face ataupun doing it online. Alright? Because some of those yang buat internship, ada yang kena buat online, then you have to stay home. So it's going to be very difficult because there's no communication between you and whoever that's inside the organization. Mungkin you only know a few people. Alright? So it is very important that culture, okay, in an organization is a positive, you can inculcate positive culture so that dia boleh lead to a better communication among employees. All right. And when it leads to a better communication and a better way of doing things, it would actually help to reduce. The last one is the monitoring cost. Why? Because you don't have to force people to do things. They will do it because they know what to do. Okay, so this is basically the role of a culture. So in order for you to have a good, effective culture, definitely it needs to be cultivated, needs to be encouraged and fertilized. It's not something that just go on without any supervision or any activities that can actually, cultivate that particular positive environment. So you need to have something to actually boost that kind of effective culture. Mentoring can be one of those that can help, all right? You also have another one which is called as a reward system, okay? Why? Because reward definitely can influence someone to do things, okay, effectively, and of course, managing information efficiently. Why? This is where power comes in, the power of money. It becomes a motivation for you to work towards that particular direction. It's a good motivational factor when it comes to reward. And reward also covers monetary and non-monetary. Sometimes any kind of non-monetary incentive system can also be something that can actually influence you to do certain things. Yelah macam you all kalau face to face punya kelas, oh semangat nak datang kelas sebab apa? Especially the guys, semangat datang kelas sebab apa? Oh, adalah hamba Allah yang lawa dalam kelas tu. Itu yang motivate you all datang kelas. Can be that way. Maknanya there's always something that attracts you and makes you stay there. Not just money, but maybe something else as well. Some people are inclined towards towards money, but some may be something else. So itu maksudnya reward system and incentive, how powerful it is. Tadi somebody was talking about power. Yes, this is how powerful, okay, reward system is to make sure that your employees move towards the same direction, okay, towards the same strategic direction or strategic goals that you have. Okay. What can be the disadvantage of a reward system? Sometimes too much being influenced by maybe monetary, okay, that if any activities that doesn't involve money, your employees may not want to pursue with it. All right. Or if there are any activities that basically doesn't help you to actually be promoted, you might not want to actually pursue with that particular activities. These are the kind of downside that a reward system would have. All right. When your activities are very much tied up with rewards. That means you are going to do it only when there are rewards, but if you don't have any rewards, you are not going to do that. But you must always tell people, okay, you must tell yourself, basically, you are not just doing it for the reward that you have here in this particular world, but you must always remember that there's always another world that we are moving to. All right? That is the reward that you need to actually build up. Because if you are poor in this particular world, what more to say in the other world? So you have to motivate yourself in that sense. Okay, so this is basically the kind of values. Ada yang extrinsic, very clear cut. Ada yang intrinsic, which is not clear cut, which is inside you. Okay, that motivates you to do things. So if you can put your rewards or your direction right, okay, your strategic direction is basically why you are doing it because of Allah. You might not be looking at other things anymore, so you just do it. All right, so it's not easy, but it is something that you can actually train yourself to actually do it. Always expect reward only from Allah, not rewards from any other people. If you put your rewards on people, that's where you are going to be frustrated. All right? So think about it. So basically, these are some of the effective reward system that you will have: a clear, well understood, broadly accepted objective. Maknanya everybody knows about it. Everybody is very clear on how, okay, when you will be rewarded, when you will be promoted. So everybody knows about it. So if those particular structure is very clear on the reward system, then it shouldn't be a problem. And it has to be fair, just and fair as well. If you can still remember that word from your CRG, it has to be just and fair. So you wouldn't want to see like some people can be promoted, but the kind of work that they are doing is a lot lesser than you, but you have been putting your effort, but you don't get anything. So you don't want this thing to happen. Okay? You don't want any things that is not fair there. And in the context of behavioral control, boundaries plays an important role. All right. Why is boundaries playing an important role? There are boundaries and constraints can be useful. you need to set the kind of limits. All right. So to what extent that they are going to be promoted, okay, basically to what extent that they are going to be, enjoying that particular rewards. So there must be some kind of boundaries and control in that sense, so that you will be able to tell your employees, okay, not all the time that you are going to be rewarded, but if you are able to fulfill certain requirements, you are going to be rewarded, but yet we are going to look as well at the ethical values that you uphold. So you must have some sort like a boundary there, okay, the constraint that you must put in, okay, the do's and the don'ts as well. So basically that can help shape a very good strategic control for you to move towards the strategic direction. Okay, and when I talk about the do's and the don'ts just now, okay, we are also talking about some rules and regulations that you need to actually abide to. All right, it's not just about controlling information, it's not just about the behavior, but we are also talking about the rules and regulations that you are confined to follow. All right. Okay, in the context of some of the approaches that are being used is by looking at situation. All right. What does it mean by situational factors? When we talk about having behavioral control system, some would actually look at the situational factors. What are situational factors? What do you understand about situational factors just now? How does this situational factors comes into the picture? Remember, there are certain situations, okay, when you talk about a behavioral control, there are situations that, okay, there are certain types of situation where you can, not situation, some are controllable, some are not controllable. There are some formal thing and there are some informal, all right? So it doesn't mean that you have shared values and beliefs just now in doing your work. Doesn't mean that you don't have to socialize. There are situations whereby other unwritten rules or informal communication builds up the workplace culture in an organization, right? Perhaps it's because that, okay, the upbringing of the founder in that organization who appreciate individuals, for example, that can become some sort like an informal kind of rules, okay, that actually being manifested in their activities or behaviors. So you will find, right, in certain situation as well, okay, you may be applying certain control mechanism, and in certain situation you may be applying another different kind of mechanism. So it depending on how you actually formulate your strategic control. All right. So it doesn't mean that you have to be rigid. All right. There are situations whereby, okay, situation can actually be a mechanism that helps you to actually formulate a good strategic control. Maknanya different organisation may not be able to apply this standard kind of behavioral control. Okay, so you might want to look at the different situation and the nature of the activities that they have and the kind of people that they have in an organization. So this is an example of what situational factors is all about. So if you find these are the kind of situation of that organization, they might want to have this kind of culture. If you find this kind of factors appearing in that organization, then you might want to have this kind of rules in place. And if you find this kind of situation, you might want to have this kind of a reward system. All right. So it's kind of flexible in that sense. Okay, you see who are in your organization, then only you come up with a behavioral control system for your organization. How would this particular corporate governance comes into the picture? That's where your friend talks about board of directors. Earlier on, when I asked about, okay, what do you know about strategic control? One of you mentioned about board of directors. Okay, what is it all about? Remember, in an organization, there are various types of stakeholders. All right? There are various, why do I use stakeholders? There are various types of people who are interested in what you are doing. Some are very interested, but they don't have the power. Some are very interested with some power to influence some decision in your organization. So you need to know who are the players in the organization, and knowing them is crucial because you need to control the relationship among these particular stakeholders. All right. If you are not going to control the relationship with these particular people, okay, why do I use word stakeholder study? Remember, stakeholders are looking into the extent of power and interest that particular person has on your organization. And that's the reason why it can be divided into this type. Shareholders, some are management, some may be employees, all right? Board of directors. These are the players in the organization. They are being named as shareholders, management, board of directors, employees, all right? So if you work, you are the employees. And if you are in the management team, then you can be part, or you are not just an employee, but you can be part of the management. That's how you are being grouped inside an organization. And the relationship between all of you is very crucial. Remember all these particular stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, you're the power, you're the interest. But to what extent is your power and your interest depending on the type of stakeholder you are? If you are the shareholders, definitely you have high power and high interest. Why? Because you are the one who invested into the organization. You are the one who gives the money for them to operate. And if you find that they are not successful in doing what they are, you can pull out your investment. And what happened? The company can actually collapse because there's no more money. All right. So that's where you have, that's the reason why you need to actually take care of these people. Okay, because why? They are the key stakeholders. Sebab tu you buat stakeholder mapping. What's the reason? What's the reason of doing that? Because you want to actually categorize your stakeholders to see, okay, what kind of strategy that you are going to have in place to ensure that these particular stakeholders are satisfied with your direction. All right. So you did this earlier on when you did the stakeholder mapping. So that's the reason why you do that. And in this particular topic, we are trying to put some control mechanism here. All right. So basically, the corporate governance of in this particular strategic control is focused on corporate governance here, are focusing on the relationship among these people. All right. So why? They are the one who actually managing the organization, or they can be the owner of the organization. All right. That means they have the full or total interest in this particular organization, and definitely some would have some power. All right. So you want to make them happy. And that's the reason why you need to make sure that your control mechanism do have an element of corporate governance. It's not just about taking care of your staff just now, or taking care about information, but you're also taking care about these particular people who have a say on the direction of the organization. Right? And hope you still remember the agency theory that you have already come across earlier on in your CRG. Is the relationship between principal and agent. And why this is very important, because you must remember, okay, the agent is actually doing, okay, work for the principal, and definitely the principal would want the agent to do it right, right? To do the right thing, okay, and to do it, to do things right, to do the right thing, basically. All right. So in order for them to actually ensure that this relationship goes on well, so those are the kind of principles that they have to take care. I give you the money, make sure you do use the money wisely. All right. So that's the kind of relationship that must take place. But remember, agent is a human being, and human beings have got many characters. So that's where risk of unethical activities to take place is there. Okay, ethical risk is there. Bila ada ethical risk, dia akan ada apa? Reputational risk. So that's why it is very important for you to actually align the interests between the owners and the managers. And that's the reason why you appoint board of directors, and that's the reason why you have shareholder activism ataupun engagement. All right, how you actually report whatever activities that you have to the shareholders. And that's the reason why just now we're talking about rewards and incentive is very important. And all the elements of corporate governance is basically crucial in the context. And when we talk about this kind of question, it depends. Making a decision about CEO duality. Should CEO also be the chairman of the board of directors? This one depends on your nature of business and depending on your ownership. Alright, selalu kita dengar, okay, the best standard corporate governance, CEO dengan chairman cannot be the same person. But again, what kind of structure do you have? What kind of ownership do you have? When I say ownership, sometimes the business is a family-owned business. If it's a family-owned business, you can't avoid of duality here. And sometimes duality is important to ensure that nobody takes away your business. Nobody ruin your family relationship when you talk about doing a business. So if those are important to you, sometimes we can accept this particular CEO duality. So it's very much contextual. So if you are to read your exam question, all right, read it carefully when it comes to the case. Tak semestinya all the time that duality is good. It's not good, right? Sometimes it is important for you to have that duality. Read the question carefully. What are the goals? So this is basically what are the board of directors effectiveness are all about. I rasa I'm not going to go through this thoroughly with you. You have done this before, I believe. Ingat lagi tak? I hope you still remember. Okay, yang important is board of directors dynamics. Alright, for effective board of directors, you kena ada board of directors dynamics. So when we say about dynamics, we are talking about different experience, the diversity of the board of directors. And another one is the independence. So these are important things when we talk about board of directors effectiveness. So basically, when you talk about shareholder activism and the engagement that you need to do, it depends on who your shareholders are. All right. Some of your shareholders may be individual, they have their rights as well. Some are basically institutional investors. That means your shareholders is not individual, they are companies. So these are the kind of things that you have to actually understand, and how stakeholder engagement can actually play their role here in terms of making sure that the corporate governance mechanism works successfully. So I hope you still remember on the rewards, okay, and incentive for this particular stakeholders inside your organization. Basically, okay, when it comes to corporate governance, boards are boards plays an important role, all right, in looking at managerial rewards and incentive, especially when we talk about CEO's performance, all right. So they are the one who plays an important role in nominating who would the CEO be in an organization. Sebab tu you ada nomination committee, remuneration committee, things like that. Okay. Why CEO duality? Is it important? Basically, if you are the chairman and you are also the CEO, you tend to direct that particular company towards the direction that you want, and it's a clear cut. You're not going to have any conflict, because why? The board and also the CEO as the same people, so he's the one who's going to actually maneuver the whole company towards the strategic goals that they want. All right. So like I mentioned to you, kenapa some goes for this, some goes for this one. Ada yang nak separation because to them, dia nak you tak ada conflict of interest, right? But again, read the question carefully. What's the direction of the company? Then only you decide which one is best for them. I cannot say this is better. I cannot say this is better. This is rule, right? But in some situation, if you don't follow certain guidelines, okay, it's enough for you to just explain why. Sebab corporate governance can be rule-based. Satu lagi, principle and rule-based. Kalau rule-based, dia macam Sarbanes-Oxley, maknanya compliance is very important. Kalau tak, they can take action against you. But when you talk about principle-based approach, dia tak mandatory, tapi kalau you tak follow, you have to explain why. Alright? For certain types of business, you also have some external governance control mechanism. For banks, for example, all right, in Malaysia, you have MAF661, all right, Banking and Finance Institution Act that governs the institution on top of all this Companies Act, things like that, okay, on top of whatever code of ethics that you have in your organization, you also have external governance control mechanism by bank negara. Okay, if you are the like insurance companies semua under bank negara as well, yang akan control not just your corporate governance within your organization, but there are also outside organization who will be putting some control on you as well. For those listed, okay, in KLSA, that means you are not just governed with, by the rules, okay, within the organization or the kind of business you are in, but you are also governed by the Securities Commission, right? You may also have some international corporate governance that you may need to understand, all right? The reason why you might be operating in other countries as well. So have a look and you need to understand them. All right. So basically, that's what we